It's that funky slide guitar music that comes in every Monday through Friday live at 5 on the Thune Network, Rumble X, YouTube. Check us out, subscribe, type in iNewsWire, Roy Bluggert on all those social media outlets, and you will see my nice, shining, smiling face 24/7. You can see all of our archives and everything else. What a busy day it is. Man, Tom Homan laid down the frickin' law down in Minnesota, and Jack Blank Fry, Tampon Timmy the Retard Walls, and the whole crew are running scared. Looks like they got a deal. Looks like you're finally going to get ICE cooperation with the local law enforcement. They can go in and get the criminals, and 90% of what you see with the raids and stuff is going to go away. We shall see how that works out. John Thune, leader of the Senate, says he's on board with voter ID. 1,000 kids or so are supposedly walked out on ice in Rancho Cucamonga, even though it's 80 degrees out here. Has Gavin Newsom went homophobic? Son of a gun. California collected millions for almost 100,000 dead people they gave supposedly phones to. I wonder who they were calling. But, lead story of the day. San Jose Mayor Matt Mahan has joined the California governor's race after all the high-tier candidates like Kamala Harris, Rick Caruso, and such said no mas, gave up. Democrats were on their knees begging. Matt Mahan was their last hope. Because they know. Psycho chick Katie Porter, Spy Swalwell, or any of the others, Betty. Who the hell even knows who the hell she is? Oh, man. Tony Thurman, who's ran our education system in the ground where everybody's going to just rally around him. You see the seven dwarfs down there that we see running. Matt Mahan joined that. Antonio Villaraigosa. Talk about him. Maybe he's one of the dead people. Oh, Tony Villar Jr. might be one of the dead people of that, and that's his real name. Tony Villar Jr. 5-time or 4-time flunky. Bar exam failure of that, and on it goes. But he made the announcement today on X, and then at a little press conference briefing, teleconference, whatever. Had a pipe-in interview with Ashley Zavala we'll get to in a sec. But we've had the Roy plan, which is, and Matt Mahan that's their only hope of trying to coalesce enough Democrats to knock out Steve Hilton and Chad Bianco, the two center-right freedom and liberty type Republicans running for California governor. It's even going to be more imperative to draw that contrast, because even though Mahan came out for 36 and has tried to clean out the vagrants, he's still a disaster on most policies, climate change and all that. You know, the whole we can solve all this stuff, and even of how they've cleaned up San Jose. Maybe the most expensive, richest city in the freaking world. Probably overall, some have classified it as the most expensive city in the world. Home to the high-tech people that are making god-awful amounts of money. There's just money flowing all over the place. That San Jose was in the toilet, and Mahan had to come in there and start cracking down on the crime, and that's going to kill him with a lot of the constituencies in the Bay Area and Los Angeles. What are you going to say? Trump is a mean guy because he's enforcing the law? So is Matt Mahan. So he's going to have a lot of trouble, even though he's from the Bay Area. I think he's going to have more trouble than he thinks trying to gain traction, because the liberal kook left, and they're going to be a bigger part of the electorate like the conservatives are in a primary. He's going to have to crack that crowd, and they're not necessarily 1,000% red hot on him. Want to get to Phil, and the Roy plan, and for those of you that doubt or say it can't work or anything like that, Phil Matier, he's been a long-time columnist, political critic, been on KGO, CBS Radio, ABC7, all that noise. He's been up there a long, long time in the political scenes, writing, covering it for decades. He was on ABC7 up there in the Bay Area, Eyewitness News, and he was talking about the Roy plan, even though he didn't mention me specifically by name. But we shall see if thy video plays on this. Here we go. Maybe.
Now, because Mahan has added his name to a very crowded list of candidates running for...
And
nothing like a day on the job to remind...
Proverbial. Why does it start with this noise of on the commercial? We'll get to Phil in a second. Now, he's going to stress here 1,000%. We're going to be on it. Here we go, I think. Oh, man, these videos reset. What a deal on this. But he even stamped that we are on a track. We are on the track to actually, and the possibility is there, we could get Steve Hilton and Chad Bianco in the top two. And they've been nervous about this. They thought Kamala or Rick Caruso was going to run, that was going to clear the field. Remember, Katie Porter said if Kamala runs, well, I'm not going to, I would drop out. Then all of a sudden she said she's running if Kamala does, because she'd heard already, and it was pretty much known, Kamala wasn't going to run for California governor. So you get to these points and these critical indices, and it is 1,000% on the mark. Here's, I hope we got the report back on ABC.
Talking in his announcement earlier this morning on social media, saying it was a couple weeks ago that Sylvia encouraged him to run. Matt Mahan has always talked about a back-to-basics approach, common sense. That's the approach he says he's taken with the city of San Jose, and he's really touted a lot of accomplishments, he says, with homelessness and cutting red tape to building and developing more housing in the city of San Jose. I want to take you to a full screen now because Mahan has added his name to a very crowded list of candidates running for governor. There's some big contenders, too, in the primary. The top two candidates with the most votes, regardless of party, move on to the general election. We spoke with ABC7 News insider Phil Matier this morning, just after the news broke that Mahan would be running. We talked to them about how the crowded field that now also includes Mahan could impact the race.
According to the polling, the Democrats are all split up, with the highest of them, East Bay Congressman Eric Swalwell and former Representative Katie Porter, at best doing it about 12 to 14%. Meanwhile, the Republican side, which has two primary candidates, is their Riverside County Sheriff Chad Bianco is up there with 14 or 15%. There is a possibility, statistically, it's a long shot, that the two Republicans could actually be the two top vote getters in the first round, and the Democrats could ice themselves out.
So there you heard it from Phil Matier. There's the latest seven of the seven dwarfs, Matt Mahan, San Jose mayor, who just threw his hat in the ring today, right at the last minute. I think we got maybe about a month before I think the closing periods and actually the drop dead deadline you've got to sign up for running for governor, I think, is in here in a couple of weeks. It's about mid-February. So it's either blank or get off the pot. And they didn't have anybody else. They've been begging Matt Mahan to run. Because after Caruso dumped, they're thinking, holy crap, we might get Chad Bianco and Steve Hilton coming out of the June primary, and we are effed. There you heard it. Phil Matier, longtime political columnist, pundit from the Bay Area, stamping the Roy plan just might work. And if we work hard enough and smart enough, it will work, and we'll elect center-right, freedom, liberty type Republican governor in California in 2026. We better, or we, the people, are completely effed. You want to be paying 100,000 people that are dead and giving them cell phones? Hey, that's how crazy it is around there. We'll get into this and much, much more as we move along on that. Of course, hopefully we didn't have Susan on yesterday, but hopefully we'll have Susan Shelley tonight at 5:30 when we join the Mighty Met KMET. Yes, we will. It's really crying time again, as we've said. You know, the old song goes. They had no choice. The other ones had absolutely. They had pretty much figured. Spy Swalwell, Katie Porter, Tony Thurman, they were thinking, they came up to this point. Most of the Democrat strategists, movers and shakers, money people, they thought, holy carapiola, we're not going to make it. These guys, Hilton and Chad, are going to be the top two. We're going to be completely out of this. As I reported it last week, they were on their knees begging Matt Mahan. They've been throwing all kinds of numbers and perks and promises to him. He said, you got to save us. Well, he finally buckled under the pressure, as they say. And as I like to call them, the seven dwarfs that are running, it's going to be a crack-up. And not saying that Matt Mahan can't pull it off, but he's, you know, a lot of people, especially in the kook left, are not happy with him, especially backing Prop 36 and jabbing at Gavin Newsom. Gavin Newsom actually put it out, and he was asked a question of, oh, what do you think of Matt Mahan running? And he was like, oh, who? Matt who? He was trying to play blank-eating games with it. Because Matt Mahan's been criticizing him right regularly in the mix. So it's going to definitely be a state where, and this is the first time I've seen it in a very long time, that the rats are actually running. And it feels so good. Oh, boy. Maybe we got a chance. With Gavin Newsom on the run, it will be absolutely fascinating. One thing that's been busting loose, and the whole raid down in Georgia, we covered a little bit yesterday, all the ballots were preserved from 2020. That's very unusual. Usually, by 2 years, they destroy all the ballots for the 2020 election. Garland Favortino, as you're seeing here, sued in November 2020 after the stolen election. I mean, November 7th, like a couple days, in Fulton County of Georgia. The judge actually, check this date out. The judge on January 6, 2021, yes, on that day, he granted Garland Farvatino's motion to preserve all the documents, all the ballots, everything else. Otherwise, they'd have been gone. That's why Trump was able to go in with the Justice Department yesterday and confiscate everything. So hopefully we got a chance. Another development with the SAVED Act, John Thune, of all people, came out for voter ID. Let's get it done, Thune. Get off your ass and get the voter ID passed. See what the clip.
Repeatedly urged the passing the SAVED Act as well as in the Senate. Why hasn't that been brought to the floor for a vote? And what's your stance on requiring proof of citizenship to vote in elections?
Well, I'm for that. I've co-sponsored the SAVE Act in the past. I think my understanding is that they are still modifying the bill. It includes right now a requirement that you be a citizen to register to vote, but it doesn't include a requirement that to vote you be a resident. So in other words, if you're going to have what we call voter ID or photo ID when somebody goes into the ballot box to vote, that's not currently covered in the bill. So that's been fixed and addressed, and I think the new bill that comes out hopefully will deal with that.
So if they get it right, and let's get it right, let's get the thing on the ballot. Let's get it passed. Let's get it in place for the 2026 election. Thune, Mike Johnson over in the House. Let's get this thing passed. We want it rock solid. Voter ID, to register when you go to the voter and polls. And we need to eliminate these 30-day elections too while you're at it. Ballot harvesting and everything else. You can't show up on the Tuesday to vote. Then you probably don't need to be voting. Let's eliminate all the frauds. The more you carry out, the only reason to carry out these 30-day elections and ballot harvesting, and it goes here and there and postmarks, and, ballots can come in 30 days later and we're going to count them. It's all BS. That's all. That's just to simplify the fraud. Stop the steal in 2026. Is Gavin Newsom gone homophobic? This is in the California Globe. Newsom's now jumping on Scott Bessent, who's the Treasury Secretary under Trump, which is a gay dude. So, okay. They're PO'd that Trump has got one of his most powerful cabinet positions he gave to some dude that was gay. So Gavin Newsom's knocking him. That's why Matt Mahan was calling him out on the Twitter wars. He was got him in a pink suit jacket and with a very feminine pose on the deal on that. And, was doing it out on Izzy's, his press secretary's guy's press deal. But it just shows you how disingenuous, the champion of the gays and all this, and inclusive and all that, and boys and girls sports and locker rooms and bathrooms and all that. And now he's mocking Scott Bessent. That guy, even of that, I'm still, don't count him out as being president of 2028. Do not take it for granted. Don't say, he can't win. He's got all the way to the governorship, for crying out loud. Great Tom Homan is laying down the law in Minnesota. It's reported now that he does have a deal for ICE officers, Border Patrol, to cooperate with local law enforcement to go in and get the criminals when they're in the jails. He had a press conference this morning after the meeting with the yucks over there in Minnesota.
I begged for the last 2 months on TV for the rhetoric to stop. I said in March, if the rhetoric didn't stop, There's going to be bloodshed. And there has been. I wish I wasn't right. I don't want to see anybody die. Not officers, not members of the community, and not the targets of our operations. For the people out there who don't like what ICE is doing, if you want certain laws reformed, then take it up with Congress. Again, ICE is making this up. They're enforcing laws enacted by Congress and signed by the president. The same laws have been on the books for the last 6 presidents I worked for. I started with President Reagan and ending with President Trump. Every administration, we enforce the same laws. If you don't like what ICE is doing, instead of protesting this building, go protest Congress. Tell me what changes. You have your First Amendment rights, I support that. You have the right to protest. I'm just asking you to keep it peaceful. But threatening law enforcement officers, engaging in impeding and obstruction and assault is never okay. And there will be zero tolerance. You interfere, impede, assault an ICE officers, you will be arrested.
Bill O'Saley has said the same thing out here from the U.S. Attorney's Office and Trump and everyone else. Simple. Don't be stupid. Is it that hard? Is it really that hard to understand? Apparently for some people it is. A couple people lost their lives not understanding that. Here's more from the presser.
Most important, the governor and the AG, the Mayor Fry, we didn't agree on everything. I didn't expect to agree on anything. I've heard many people want to know why we're talking to people who they don't consider friends to administration. Bottom line is you can't fix problems if you don't have discussions.
He's exactly right. Apparently they have the framework or a deal cut with Fry, Jacob Fry was crying and he's still kicking and screaming somewhat. At least Keith Ellison, the AG, and mainly Tampon Timmy the retard Waltz know the jig is up and they got to, that's why they cut the deal. And hopefully ICE Border Patrol will be able to walk in to the Minnesota jails, get the criminals, run them out, and you won't see 90% of the chaos and crapiola that you've been seeing. Only in California. California collected millions for 94,000 dead people's phone and internet service, bombshell FCC report finds. Why didn't, of course, we did not know about this under the Biden administration. The fraud and the abuse, this is outright theft. There's no other way to describe it. And we got to stopping with the rhetoric. I mean, there's a lot of Trump reposted this. I mean, for Mays or Eric Doherty or whoever. But listen to this.
Caring for people was at the core of who he was. He was incapable of causing harm. Alex carried patience, compassion, and calm as a steady light within him. Even at the very end, that light was there. I recognized his familiar stillness and signature calm composure. Caring for people.
Well, he's kicking out the light, spitting on the ICE officer's car. Oh, he was purer than the wind-driven snow, as Pocahontas said. And the whole tear-jerking. And this is why we don't believe you, even if with that. The trillions in dollars of you and your ilk have given away in fraud and stolen from us, and given it to some of the most heinous criminals, who've sent it to some of the biggest dictators, warmongers, people of suppressing, murdering, raping, and who knows what. This is why you have 111% negative credibility, Pocahontas, and all you others, and Gavin Newsom, and Ulysses Baby Jesus Cabrera, and Canine hating Corey Jackson, and the list goes on. It's really beyond the pale. Here's the Santa Clara County Sheriff, which Matt Mahan is in. This is why you got to watch with Matt Mahan, even at the rhetoric. Listen to this in a tripe.
That we're going to be here for you, side by side. So as you're getting off those trains, you're getting off those buses, yeah, high probability you're going to see somebody in uniform. But if they're not masked, if they're wearing tan and green or blue or black, trust me, they're there for your protection. They're there for your protection. If they're masked and they're trying to hide their identity, then somebody hasn't communicated with us, because we've made it very...
Shut up. That is a complete lie. They have tried. ICE and that. We're not only sanctuary city, county, and state in California. You do not cooperate with them. That's why they have to do this. Minnesota, LA, everything else has been a prime example. So whoever this dingwad is, Bob Johnson, quit lying, saying you want the criminals operating in your county. The question is why, Bob Johnson? How many brown paper sacks are sitting on your doorstep or back porch, Bob Johnson? This stuff is absolutely ridiculous. Thank goodness for Trump. Trump's EPA seeks to slam the brakes. Slam the brakes on California's costly trucking emission standards. This cannot come quick enough. We have been screwed over by this. Independent truckers, dudes just trying to make a living, feed their family, have been run out of business in California. I don't know the many people I've known that made a dang good living, could build a custom home on an acre lot, have a truck, support their family. That day is gone in California because of stupid, idiotic rules and regulations. And now only the big companies, the rich, white, evil man in New York City, the hedge fund operator, owns all the trucks, and you're working for him. Of course, nothing like El Presidente. Donald J. Here's him ending up, had another one of his monthly cabinet meeting with everybody in the White House.
I just want to thank everybody for being here. My cabinet has been amazing. I like this much better than going around for 3 hours. We'll pick on other ones. Pam, you're doing great. We're all doing great. JD, if you'd like to say something, you can. Would you like to really quickly? He is, after all, the Vice President of the United States.
1 minute, 1 minute.
I just say it's an honor to serve with this group, and we're doing a lot of good for the American people. We're very proud of it.
Yeah, we're very proud of the country. We're very proud of you. Thank you very much.
So JD says, "Hey, I'm just here for the free coffee. You're doing a great job, Donald J. Keep it up. We're with you. The America people are with you." You're seeing the poll numbers start to flip around. I'm seeing more of an optimistic sign in 2026. It better be the year of the badass. Plain and simple. Because there's no other way to go. We don't want to lose this deal. Not now, not ever. Hopefully.
2 seconds, here we go.
IE Newswire Daily is on the air.
The following is a paid program. Views and claims expressed are those of the program producer and are not endorsed by this station. Opinions expressed are not necessarily those of radio station KMET, its management, employees, or affiliates.
There's that funky slide guitar music that comes on every Monday through Friday live. 5:30 on the Mighty Net, 1490 AM, broadcasting all over the Inland Empire in the aforementioned AM band. Join our vast video audience in the Evil Lippy Network, Rumble, X, YouTube. Check us out, subscribe, type in IE Newswire, Roy Blecker. You see my nice, smiling, shining face on that. Boy, we've had a lot of stuff. Matt Mann is the latest of the seven dwarfs on the Democratic side to jump in the race for governor right at the last minute of that. Democrats were begging them because the Roy plan is working. We even had Phil McTeer, longtime political pundit up in the Bay Area, saying, you know what? This is a possibility. When they say there's a possibility Chad and Steve Hilton are going to be the top two coming out, they know darn well, and they've known that, and that's what they're scared of. They're going to try to hang their hat on Matt Mahan. I think he's got some positives, but he's also got a lot of negatives that are going to pull on him. So I don't know if he'll be able to pull this out and try to get that in. Hopefully not. Hopefully people will stay strong. We'll get Chad and Steven in the top two and let them fight it out in November. And maybe California's got a chance. 100,000 cell phones to dead people in California. One good thing, Trump's coming in with the regulations and everything else for eliminating the trucking and all that. That's basically, the independent truckers been regulated out of business, and all the hedge funds and the big guys own all the trucks, and you're working for them. That's supposed to be for the people, for individuals, for the average person. And it goes on and 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 on. Holy cow of that. It's absolutely 100%. I didn't catch you, Jesse, if you were on that. Did Susan ever call in, or do we got her on the line?
Yeah, she's on the line, ready to go.
Okay, so that, because I didn't hear you till you were right there, till you told me 2 seconds.
Yeah, I realized I was mute, and I was talking to myself for like 2 minutes.
Well, okay, so we will bring in the famed editorial writer, columnist for the Press Enterprise, San Bernardino Sun, Inland Daily Bulletin, Redlands Daily Facts. More important to me, Vice President of Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association, Susan Shelley. Welcome to IE Newswire with Roy.
Thank you, Roy. Great to be with you.
Man, what do you think of Matt Mahan jumping in the governor's race?
Well, I'm not a big fan because there was just a sales tax on the ballot that was sold as, oh, we have to have this for the hospitals, we must have this for the hospitals, but it was actually a general tax, a sales tax increase, the most regressive kind of tax in one of the wealthiest counties. And he backed it. And it was a general tax, which means that they don't have to spend the money on hospitals. They can spend the money on anything. And I think that was really a bad sign, you know, if he's not only willing to back a tax, but a very deceptively framed tax. I thought that was bad news.
That's what I say. I mean, other than, you know, his Prop 36 back in that gives him the, you know, that's why they're thinking, oh, well, he's, you know, the conservatives or maybe some of the moderate Democrats will back him of that. But there again, they're going to look at, hey, man, you're in maybe one of the wealthiest, if not the wealthiest real estate market in the whole entire world when you take the totality of it. and you're passing more taxes on this, and this is the enigma of you're no different than California. Yeah, maybe you cleaned up the vagrant stuff a little bit, but you're the best of the best of the best. You should be the shining example of all of this, and you're not. And then he's gonna, the kook left. They're going to have a hard time dragging him away from the Katie Porters and stuff with his support of 36. I think even though on paper he looks like a good candidate, I have my doubts he can make enough noise to crack that top 2. He has a possibility, but I don't think it's near a slam dunk.
Well, I agree with you there. And once again, nobody's getting so they all stay in. It's very good news for the Republicans.
Right. As I call them, the 7 dwarfs, or maybe they're up to 8 now, or whatever it is.
I think they're up to 10.
Whatever the number is, yeah. I mean, the more the merrier, like I say, and even if 2 or 3 drops out. And this is another thing that I've, before the Democrats, and I've always said this, and I've always envied them a lot over it, they had party discipline. Man, if somebody like Big Daddy Jesse Unruh or something came in there, he'd have told the other 9 to get the hell out, or you will never see another political office. In fact, if you're in office, your area will be completely shut out. But I don't see anybody with the strength and the gravitas, let's put it nicely, of that in California in the Democratic Party. I don't think they got the party boss power to clean that field out and try to coronate a Matt Mahan. What do you think, Susan?
It's looking that way. Nancy Pelosi seems to be at a loss of power, and Gavin Newsom is a lame duck, and they don't have anybody in Washington who can go appoint people to different jobs or ambassadorships or anything to get them out of the way or to coax them out of the race. It's looking like this is it for a lot of these Democrats who are ambitious, and they're just playing musical chairs. There's too many of them and not enough offices, and so I don't think anybody wants to get out. But, some of them are sure to get out. I mean, Betty Yee at 1% in the last poll, why is she staying in? It doesn't make any sense, but certainly it only takes about 4 or 5 of these Democrats to split up the vote sufficiently to put 2 Republicans. It seems unlikely that the Democrats would let that happen, but I thought that would have not happened by now. And the filing period opens in a week or 2 and closes, I think, the 6th or 8th of March, and they're all still in. The 6th of March, I think, is the date. They're all still in here, so we'll see.
I think so. I don't see anybody being able to put the hammer of getting them out of there. And like I said, as I've dubbed it, the Roy plan might work. Hilton and Chad might be the top 2. And I didn't come up with it. The rats told us how to do that with Senate District 4. They pulled us off and got a plus 20 Republican seat by doing exactly this. Got the top 2 Democrats to split 20 and 20. And the rest of the Republicans were 19 on down. You have Alvarado Gil sitting up there. Well, she changed parties because she's trying to rerun this time, and she knows she won't get elected as a Democrat. That's the only reason she shifted. She, changed her party. But they elected a Democrat in a plus 20 deal. And that's basically what you got in this state. So really, if people keep trying to argue with it, and I say, you're delusional thinking. You could put in every poll, or internal, external, I see, you could put Chad or Steve against Betty Yee, and she wins by 15 points. They're just voting on the D. That's the way the state is. But if you strategize, I've said this thing is won in June. What do you say, Susan?
Yeah, I think so too. And there's a very interesting dynamic in terms of negative campaigning that is not happening. The 2 Republicans don't seem to be campaigning against each other, which is very healthy. That's good. And the Democrats don't want to criticize either of the Republicans. I think the reason for that is they are nursing the fantasy that there will be 2 Democrats in the November election. And if that happens, then the endorsement of the defeated Republicans will be extremely important. Because, after all, it's 35%, 40% of the electorate in a general election that's Republican. And if for some reason we wind up with 2, well, I hope not, 2 Democrats in November, they will all want to be the one that gets the Republican endorsement. So that's a very strong incentive not to attack the Republicans at this stage. And, you know, they've got whatever they're going to use. They've got something on everybody, even if they make it up. But they're not pushing it against the Republicans just yet. So I think the dynamic actually favors the likelihood of 2 Republicans in the governor's race.
I can almost say with 111% certainty, at least Steve and Chad have been told, hey, don't be pounding each other because this is what we're trying to do on that. Want to get to your columns this week because they're always excellent, but their votes, I think, very poignant this week. First one is California taxpayers get fleeced by fraudsters and possibilities. I think this is a satire column, but what say you, Susan?
Well, you know, it occurred to me as we all get ready to file taxes in April, it occurred to me that people don't realize how high the income taxes are on ordinary, regular middle-class incomes, and even lower than middle-class incomes, where in other states, income taxes don't hit anybody but the rich. In this state, you can be paying 8% on an after-tax income up to $70-some thousand. Now, that's not enough to qualify for a mortgage to buy a house, but it's enough to be considered rich for income tax purposes. And then you also have this awful situation where you're taxed on the capital gain of your house if you sell it. And if you've held real estate for a long time in California, thanks to inflation and other factors beyond your control, it has a nominal price that's much higher than what you paid. And that's a capital gain if you sell it. And California taxes capital gains as ordinary income. So you could sell a house, and congratulations, you're rich for 15 minutes until you pay the taxes. And they're going to grab, combined federal and state, they're going to grab 40% of the gain that you made on that sale. And so you have that where people are paying these very high taxes, and what's happening to the money? We're seeing so much is stolen, and it's just really aggravating when you're paying those taxes and they're coming out of your paycheck every week for the state of California, and then you see all this Medi-Cal fraud and 210 hospice agencies in Van Nuys, California, within 1 mile of each other. What's that? It's just cradle-to-grave fraud. Between the daycare centers to the hospices, it's cradle-to-grave fraud. And the taxes are so high, and this is where the money's going. So it's very frustrating, and I think people have got to hold their elected officials accountable for this. It's not good enough to say, oh, we didn't know, and then there's one arrest after a third of the budget is gone. They have to get on this, and California needs to step up its technology and its vetting and do what the other states are doing, which is reviewing documentation and verifying eligibility and otherwise checking before the money goes out, which we don't do enough of in California, and that's been documented by the auditor.
Yeah, the auditor's been screaming about this. They don't do anything. They just keep spending. Besides record money, the budget is, the total spending in the state of California is almost double what it was 12 years ago. And yet we're more in deficit. We don't have this. The roads ain't getting fixed. On and on and on. Everybody from every end, the impending pension crisis they're going to have because they can't pay the bill on that, for all the public employees and everything else that's stacking up. How did, again, with all the stuff that's going on, I think it's going to, even as much as I follow this stuff, I didn't even think as we're seeing now, I didn't even think the fraud was this deep. I mean, 100,000 cell phones to dead people we're paying for in California. I mean, that's beyond absurd, Susan Shelley.
Not only are we paying it, but they're defending it. So the federal government comes in and says, we're not going to do this anymore, and California goes to court to stop the federal government from shutting down the fraud. This is so disturbing, and it's so expensive, and we're not getting the services that we're paying for. We're not getting anything except fleeced. And it used to be kind of cute. They would find some study, Rand Paul would bring it out once a year, some silly government study that they could make sound ridiculous, and maybe it was ridiculous. But this is not funny. This is just tens and hundreds of billions of dollars stolen right out of your paycheck.
1,000%. I mean, and I mean, like I said, you always know there's going to be a certain amount of fraud and deceit in that, if you 1 or 2%. I mean, we're going to be lucky, I think, when we break all this down, if 50% of all government spending isn't some sort of fraud, payoff, inside deal or something. It seems to be appearing that way, at least from my end of it, Susan.
I hope the FBI brought enough handcuffs for everybody. That's all I can say.
1,000%. Because, I mean, I think this thing just goes so deep and so long. I don't think, I hope we don't elect a ding dong like nationally, like Gavin Newsom as governor's president of that, because it's going to take a while. It definitely, even if Trump administration works as hard as they can, we're not going to clean this out in 3 more years. They might just be starting to get into the beginning or really moving it in 3 years. It's going to be imperative that we don't lose our backbone on this and keep the pressure on, Susan.
Well, I think you're right, but the Trump administration can do a lot because the Treasury Department and the IRS Criminal Division, which is under the Treasury Department, they have tools to see where the money is going. And they can trace the wire transfers and the money being shipped out of the country. They can find the money in the bank accounts. They know everything. The IRS knows everything about where this money moves. And if they can get a judge to sign off in a criminal investigation, they can get even more. So I think if the difference here between the Biden administration and the Trump administration is that the Biden administration was in on all the fraud. They were the ones bringing people into the country and signing them up for benefits and all the rest of it. But the Trump administration is on board with cleaning this up. And they can do it if they have the will, and it appears they have the will.
Your other column this week, Gavin Newsom grandstands and flops at Davos, Susan Shelley.
Wasn't that ridiculous? He gets off the plane in Switzerland, immediately starts calling all of our NATO allies pathetic. Pathetic is the word he used for, quote, being on their knees to Donald Trump. And then he waves around knee pads, and he just generally acts like an insult comic. And what is that, where a governor goes to a foreign country and criticizes the sitting elected president of the United States to foreign journalists and other leaders? That's crazy that he did that. And I looked at who paid for the trip. And there's a foundation in California called the California State Protocol Foundation, which has as its, quote, mission, relieving the California taxpayers of having to pay certain expenses. Well, where did the money come from that's in this foundation? Who donated? And if you look at the behested payment reports, what you see is that the biggest chunk of donations into this foundation came from Gavin Newsom's inaugural committees, which raised about $8 million for festivities and spent only $3 million and put the rest of it in the California Protocol Foundation, which now pays for Gavin Newsom to go to climate conferences and international wingdings like Davos. And where did this money come from in the inaugural committees? Well, Gavin Newsom called everybody who has an interest in California government, all the unions, all the corporations, all the groups that get money from the state or contracts from the state, and asked them for money. And there's no cap on how much those donations can be. It can be millions of dollars. It can be hundreds of thousands. It doesn't have to be reported unless it's more than $5,000, and they all were. And he called everybody, Indian tribes, the teachers' union, the charter schools, the aircraft manufacturers. The list goes on and on and on. And he raised $8 million for his 2 inaugurations, and then he shoveled the money over to this foundation to pay for his foreign trips. And really, that's just so sleazy. It's nothing but a shakedown of people who shouldn't have to pay to do business in California. Very Chicago politics, and, really on a grand scale.
Maybe we can bust, if we can get this attention going, and, if things break our way, and it's Chad and Steve coming into that, And I know the governor's race is sexy like president, everybody pays attention to it. Maybe we got some shots at down ballot, like Michael Gates, the former city attorney down in Huntington Beach, is running for attorney general. The great Sonia Shaw, the Chino Valley School Board president, is running for state superintendent of schools. And the teachers unions and all the crew, that the whole school crowd is like splitting up again their endorsements on superintendent of schools. So maybe in 2026 things are starting, especially in California, starting to break our way. What do you say, Susan?
Well, it's very interesting that the unions have not all coalesced behind one candidate for anything. That's very interesting. When I was a candidate a long time ago, I was in a race that had a bunch of Democrats and 3 Republicans. It had like 7 or 8 Democrats and 3 Republicans. It was an assembly special election. And we all had to go for interviews with a public employees union that was considering an endorsement. Obviously, they weren't going to endorse a Republican, but they wanted us to come. So I went. So this is what the conversation went as. Who do you think's going to win? That's all they wanted to know. They wanted to know which Democrat of the 7, because they couldn't tell which one was going to win. That's the only thing they wanted to know. Because they didn't want to be on the wrong side. There was a public employee union with an assembly race. I think it's very similar in the governor's race. Nobody wants to get behind the candidate who's not going to be the candidate and have them be mad, so they're all kind of holding back until they can get a sense of who it's going to be. And they don't know.
That just goes to kind of confirm what I've said, and I've always admired the Rats on that. They don't care about the policy stuff. They worry about that once the elections are over. They're concentrating on winning, and hopefully this time, Republicans and the center right and freedom liberty types are finally catching on to that theme. First, you got to win. You can holler and scream about everything else, but if you don't win and get those elected positions and get in there, it's all for naught. First you got to get in there and win. That's why I say on the strategy, we got in California, whether there's voter fraud and all the stuff we know is going on, we just got to figure out a smarter way to beat that. I think we've got it this year. We've got the shot. Even, like I said, Phil Mantier, the big guru, pundit up there in the Bay Area, acknowledged it. He said, hey, it's looking, there's a possibility it could be Chad and Steve coming up on the deal. So hopefully we've got it. We got about a minute left. Tell them why they should join HJTA Go.
Well, we are fighting to protect taxpayers at the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association. It's all we do. And you can be a member of this great member-supported organization. HJTA.org is the website, HJTA.org, and get the petition to save Prop 13. We have less than a month left to collect the signatures that we need to get this on the November ballot, and I think we're going to make it, but it's going to be too tight. So help us out. Go to SaveProp13.com, download the official petition, print it right at home on your own printer, or we will mail it to you. Click that button that says Get the Petition, and we'll mail it to you. And then fill it out, sign it, get a couple of neighbors to sign it, fill out that little form at the bottom, and mail it back as fast as you can. We need 1 million signatures by the 17th of February to protect Prop 13, to stop these crazy tax increases that are going through loopholes that should not be allowed. We're going to stop that. We're going to fix that. And we're going to save California. HJTA.org.
Thanks for being on, Susan. We'll do it again next week.
Thanks so much, Roy.
You got it. Susan Shelley, Vice President of Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association and columnist extraordinaire for the Southern California News Group. I think 11 papers all across Southern California. Man, we got a shot. It keeps me optimistic. Of all the things that are going on, when you see the Bay Area guys and gals are doing this, trying to get Matt Mahan in there, dragging him, kicking and screaming, because he didn't want to run. He was perfectly content to run for that. And the other subsect of this, and why I think of a lot of the reason why you didn't see a Kamala Harris or a Rick Caruso or one of the big names jump in the race. They know how bad the situation is in California, at least in our government. And they didn't want that stink on them. And I think Matt Mahan knew that too, but they were throwing, let's say, so many incentives at him and probably demands. Like I say, they play to win. And I don't doubt that the conversation, and of course I'm not in as much in those circles, but I don't doubt the conversation went, hey, if you don't run as governor in this race, you will never see an office again. We will actually run somebody against you as San Jose mayor. That's how the rats play the game. And all the indications were he didn't want to do it. And I think of the top tier, or let's say candidates that you would say, okay, this is like the big wigs, the high dollars, the big rollers, the ones that are going to get the attention, have all said, hey, that they finally had to put enough. I mean, they had to put some, I believe they put some extreme pressure on Mahan to step in there. And that's why he waited to the last minute. And because I think they had nobody else. Because they're looking, any of the others are running. I almost don't think at this point they have hardly any chance to beat Steve or Chad to get in the top two. And that's what they were really concerned about in a big way. And we'll see. It isn't that we still can't get Steve and Chad in the top two coming up. It's still a very, very, very big possibility that situation could arise. We got to stop this kind of stuff. The throngs of kids, 1,000 protesters, ICE. Got to get kids back into, in Rancho Cucamonga, got to get kids back to education of what they should be doing, not being indoctrinated in that. And as Sonia Shaw said yesterday, the edict came down, parents get notified. We need to stop this crap in the schools. 1,111%. So we don't have these problems, or people, like Tom Homan said, I don't want to see people die. I don't want to see my ICE officers under threat. I don't want to have them in these positions, and they don't have to be. If we just put some sensible frickin' policies in. Is it really that hard? Well, so I guess it has. It has been for a while that hard to understand or do. Hopefully that day is changing. Hopefully 2026, and we look back at it, we can stamp it as a year of the badass. That we finally grew a pair and just took the bull by the horns and said, hey, it's either going to be you or me. Ah, what a practice Friday it is. On that, man, we'll be back, as we say, tomorrow, but that'll do it for today. We usually say at this time, mandatory, you're back here 23 hours live. You're the best darn show in the whole wide world. Till then, see ya.
All right, have a great night.
So you were pushing the buttons like I do.
Oh my God, yeah, I'm all like, why can't you hear me? And I'm just all like, I got 30 seconds.
Here we go again.
Yeah, well, to be fair, I'm feeling kind of sick, so I'm kind of like woozy.
There you go. Well, okay.
That's my excuse.
That's your story, and you're sticking to it. Huh?
Oh, heck yeah. All right, I'll talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye.
Oh my. Oh, better. Let's see.